Good evening, everybody. I'm Kathleen from Make the Change, and it's Wednesday evening. And let's start again. I'm Kath Lloyd from Make the Change. It is Wednesday evening, and welcome to Let's Talk. Now, tonight we're going to be talking about stress-free parenting, and what has prompted me to talk about this tonight is because over the last few weeks I've had quite a lot of conversations about parenting. Now, this has ranged from very young children who are starting to talk and feel their feet to sort of pre-teens, and then into their early to mid 20s. So I've had a large range of conversations with parents about all sorts of different issues. Now, my two are now in their early 20s, and they've done all right. They're doing okay after being parented by me and, of course, their dad. But let's just step back a little bit. When my children were small, an old friend of ours, who is a dad, said to me, "Parenting's easy, I don't know what all the fuss is about." And that really shook me, and I thought, what am I doing wrong? Why am I finding it so difficult? And it took me ages to work out exactly what was going on. And eventually I found out that actually he didn't do that much parenting. He left it to his partner, who became the stroppy stepmother, because she was the one who was making sure they were doing their homework, that they were tidying their rooms. But actually now, to this day, she is the stability in their families. Now they've grown up and now they've got their own children, and actually that dad who found it dead easy to be a dad is not really a part of their lives. And then on the other end of the scale, when I taught in offender learning and taught parentcraft, I met a lot of dads who'd got a lot of children from a lot of mothers, and they used to moan and complain about how life complicated what it was for them. And I had to be totally honest with them and say, well, you know what, you've sort of made it complicated because, before you had sex, you should have put something on it, and then you might have had an easier life. So, in other words, you've got to deal with it, you've got to manage it. But, let's be under no illusion here. I truly believe there is no stress-free parenting, because parenting is such a complicated role because there are so many variables going on. We can reduce the stress down and make it stress less, but trying to eliminate stress altogether is actually very, very difficult, because you've not only got sort of eating habits, sleeping habits, behavioural habits, their schoolwork, making sure they've got their homework done, then you've got their exams, and then you've got things like, managing or helping them manage their friendships. Then there's about fitting in their hobbies, helping them decide which GCSEs and A-levels they're going to take. And then, of course, you get into the teenage stuff, which is about puberty boyfriend-girlfriend relationships. And then you go on to things like sex, and then it's careers, and then it's sort of never-ending, isn't it? And then it's about them forming their long-term relationships, which means then you have another relationship to learn about. And then, of course, if they go on to have children, it's another role and responsibility for you as a grandparent, and all the interaction between all of the different relationships. And then, of course, there's all the interference that comes with it as well. People telling you that you should be breastfeeding and then not bottle feeding, and then you're wrapping them up too much, or you're not wrapping them up enough, and your house isn't germ free, and then you know, your house is too clean, and then and the list goes on. And it's also about your personality as well, and you know, how you take on board all of this information. And then of course you've got to consider here, you know, what else is going on in your life. So there's so much interference and there's so much at stake here. You know, it's about how do you just try and reduce everything down to the simplest format so that you can manage and be the best parent that you can be. Okay, now parenting has changed a lot, hasn't it, over the years. When I was a teenager, I didn't talk to my mum about periods. I think I told her I was having a period, but I didn't talk to her about periods. I didn't talk to her about my boyfriends, except I'm going out with him and I'm not going out with him. I didn't talk to her about, you know, whether I should have sex or contraception, really. And so, you know, parenting has evolved a lot, and I have a lot of conversations with my friends, you know, we've got children the same age, you know, perhaps they went to, you know, our kids went to school together, and you know, how do you cope? How do you manage with your child's stresses? Because when, let's be honest here, when your child is unhappy, it's a grave concern to us as a parent, isn't it? Because, you know, as a parent, we're striving for our children to be happy, successful, get on well with other people, be very sociable, amenable, and just be happy and healthy. Okay, so how do we manage that? Well, one of the things that I sort of talk to people about is there are phases. You know, they go through phases, especially when they're little. You know, their eating habits keep changing all the time. They like something, they don't like it, they then like it again. They're picking up phrases from other people that, you know, they're starting to interact with, and they're finding their feet, aren't they, and pushing the boundaries to see how far they can stretch things. And all of this has a knock-on effect to everybody else in the house. And, you know, what I always sort of talk about is, what were you like when you were that age? What was I like, you know, at that age when my kids were causing me huge stress? Because if you think about it, you know, they've got a lot of genes that are the same as yours, the same as the other parent, and you know, the ideal way to start finding out is talking to people who knew you when you were little. So your parents or other relatives, and just to start finding out what you were like at that age. Because I think if you understand where that behaviour has come from, you can accept it more easily, and you can feel your way through the process a lot more easily, because you can sort of get into your child's mindset a little bit. Now, what you know, we hear more and more about how more and more young people are struggling with stress. And a friend of mine, her daughter was struggling with stress, and I always remember her saying to me, in the end, what I did was I asked her what she wanted me to do, how much she wanted me to ask her how she was feeling, you know, because if you're not getting a great response, it can start to feel a little bit personal, and it might start an argument, because if the emotions are flowing rapidly, you know, the emotions and the feelings can feel very personal and can perhaps feel out of control. So this is the thing, is to ask your child, you know, what they want from you as a parent. And because actually when they start talking to you, they might not want an answer. You know, I always remember when my daughter, she'd come to me and she'd go, Mum, what dress should I wear? Should I wear that one or should I wear that one? And I would say, that one looks really nice on you, wear that one. And then she'd go out in the other one. So did she really want me to give her an answer, or did she just want me to listen to her? You know, and this is the same about all sorts of different problems that they might have. Do they want you to tell them what to do, or do they just want to download? Because we know ourselves, don't we, that, you know, when we've got things on our minds, that sometimes just talking about it helps bring the answer to the surface, and that you can work it out for yourself. And to be honest, at the end of the day, you know, it is their decision to take. And it's our job is about helping them understand, you know, whether that decision is the best option, run through different scenarios with them, give them the backup support that they need. And, you know, let's face it, sometimes they've just got to work it out for themselves, haven't they? And they've got to, as well, learn to manage the consequences of the decision that they make. And I know that seems pretty harsh, but if you always tell them what they should be doing, how they should be doing it, you know, when they get out into the big wide world, when they start having to defend for themselves for the very first time, they're going to be lost. And they're not going to know their own mind clearly. They're not going to be able to make high risk decisions easily. And so this is where our role as a parent really comes into play, isn't it? You know, and it's about also letting them grow into the person that they want to be, instead of a replica of us. And, you know, I know it's hard to see them make mistakes, which creates more stress for you as the parent, but, you know, this is just something that we have to accept that they have to do and they have to manage. Now, it is very, very difficult to let go, isn't it, when your children grow up and spread their wings? So it's about, as well, keeping yourself true to you as well. It's about, you know, living your authentic you as well, so that you've got a piece of yourself still intact when your children leave home. So yes, it's about understanding them, it's about supporting them, but it's also, you know, managing yourself so that you can still be you as the process goes along. I remember, you know, chatting with somebody, this was many years ago, and this couple had just had a baby, and he was saying that he was finding it a little bit hard that they never had time on their own, and I made the suggestion of perhaps, you know, the child could go for a few hours to stay at the grandparents, or, you know, somebody that they trusted. And he said, no, she won't let the child go anywhere. She doesn't trust anybody. Well, that is going to create so many different problems, not just, you know, in their relationship as a couple, but also in, you know, separation issues, trust issues, as the child grows up. And if the child has got to work out for themselves a lot of these different things, haven't they, and grow on their own. And this is what I mean about allowing them to spread their wings and be with other people. And because we all learn from everybody else, don't we? And just like, you know, our children learn from their aunties and uncles, from their siblings, from their grandparents. And I always remember that, I'd be struggling with something with my children about why they should eat their broccoli, or why they should tidy their room, or why they should they do their homework. And my mother and father-in-law would come along, and the situation would arise, and I always remember my mother-in-law almost saying exactly like I did, and they'd go, "Okay, Nanny, I'll go and do that." Now, that was so frustrating for me, but also what was so good was that I had tried to do it right, but because I was always the one saying what needed to be done, that they weren't listening to me. And then thankfully the nanny would come along, and it was just a different person coming and saying a very, very similar thing, and then they would just trot off and go and do it for her. And that is just the way it is, isn't it? Sometimes our voices aren't heard, and that can be very frustrating as a parent, but it is also something that we just have to battle through. And it's finding, isn't it, like when we communicate with anybody, whether it's our children, our partners, our siblings, our parents, it's finding a way to connect, that you can say something serious, talk about something serious, but in a way that they will listen to you. And this can be very, very difficult and hugely frustrating, especially when they're going through their teenage years, all those raging hormones, and you're desperate to help them find their way, and you're so caught up in it, it's sometimes difficult to see your way, isn't it? But it's keep managing it, keep, as best as you can, keep trying it, don't give up, because at the end of the day, yes, we love our children dearly, but they will also frustrate you enormously, but at the end of the day, it's letting them know that you love them and you are there for them. Because if they don't feel that they've got the love and they've got the support, it can be a huge slippery slope for all of you. So what I'm trying to say here, it's about keeping as level-headed as you can. And I know that can be really, really difficult. Keep a level-headed as you can. Listen to them. That's huge. Talk to them. Explain to them. And I think also what is really, really important, they should know when they have pressed your buttons and annoyed you and irritated you. They make it very clear to you when you have annoyed and irritated them. And this is what two-way communication is about, isn't it? And learning about each other. Now, I'm not saying I'm the perfect parent. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I still will make mistakes, because let's face it, every situation is new, because it's different personalities at stake. My two children have got the same parents, but they're really quite different, and that I love that about them, because they are so different. But it then makes finding the right way also difficult. But this is all about human nature, isn't it? So it's about, what I'm trying to say here is it's very, very difficult, almost impossible to say parenting is stress-free. But to help reduce it down, it's about understanding you as a person, as a parent, learning to understand how you and the other parent work together, your strengths, how you can support each other. It's about setting the boundaries, doing your best to keep those boundaries safe and secure, letting your child know that they are safe, secure, that they are loved, that they are wanted, even in the most difficult times, because, you know, when they're angry, frustrated, you know, it can be very easy for you to get angry and frustrated as well, and, you know, easily fly off the handle. And, you know, it's about us as the adult making the first move in repairing what's going on. Yes, they need to take their part as well. They need to have responsibility for that as well, and that needs to be pointed out for them. But as the older person, you know, quite often we need to take the lead in this, even though you might have been really hurt, because sometimes parenting can be heart-wrenching, especially when you have a fallout. So yeah, it's about going back to what I always say: put your hand on your heart, marry up what's going on your heart and your head, understanding your values, knowing what is important to you and why it's important to you, because if you know your why, you're in a better, stronger position to be able to put things right. So yes, manage it, love your job as, or your role as a parent, you know, because it is going to be different all the time. And, you know, people say to me, oh, I might ask them what age their children are, and every age is a lovely age. Every age has its lovable parts, but also every age has its frustrations as well, and they are different frustrations. But this is us all living life as a family, but also as individuals as well, and intertwining and interacting and all doing the best that we can do. So, you know, I know, and I was exactly the same when my kids were little. I can't wait till they're 16 and I can leave them in the house on their own. I can't wait till they're 18 and then I can go on holiday without them. I can't wait till they leave home. But in actual fact, you know, you will probably pine after those other years as well. So yeah, make the most of what you've got at this time, because you never know how things are going to change and to what extent they're going to change. So I'm sorry to say that, you know, personally I don't find parenting stress-free, okay, and I don't know any other parents who are committed to rearing their children to be the best person that they can be, stress-free. And even, you know, that friend way back, I'm sure deep down that he didn't find it stress-free as well, and really struggled, and perhaps is still struggling with managing not being a, you know, positive role in their lives and his grandchildren's lives. So, you know, it is the stress that comes with the job is something that we just have to accept, okay? But it's about managing it, manage ourselves so we can help our children manage them, to try and keep those stress levels in both people's lives as low as possible. So, you know, sorry I can't come up with the miracle cure. If I do, for stress-free parenting, if I do, I'll be straight on Let's Talk and talking about it. So, when they're pressing your buttons, when you're getting frustrated, when you don't know what to do, go back to the basics. Stop. Have a breather. Take a break. Look at your options, and then follow through with positive action. And on that note, I'm going to love you and leave you. Love your parenting, love your children, and I will speak to you again next week. Good night now.